The silence in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council was absolute. 1,200 alien representatives sat frozen in their seats as the holographic display above them flickered with impossible coordinates. The blue and green world rotating slowly in the center of the dome should not exist. Every record in the Empire said it had been dead for 40,000 years. Supreme Chancellor Vorith rose from his throne of polished obsidian. His 6 eyes narrowed as he stared at the image. Around him, the representatives of 1,000 different species held their breath. Some had scales. Some had wings. Some existed as clouds of sentient gas contained within force fields. All of them were afraid, though none would admit it. "Bring forward the witness," Vorith commanded. The massive doors at the far end of the chamber opened. 400 armed guards escorted a single figure down the long walkway toward the central platform. The figure walked calmly, shoulders straight, eyes forward. She wore a simple gray uniform with no decorations or rank insignia. She was human. Admiral Maya Torres stopped at the testimony platform and looked up at the thousands of alien faces staring down at her. Targeting lasers from the guards danced across her back. The air hummed with barely contained hostility. "You stand before the highest authority in the known galaxy," Vorith said, his voice echoing through the chamber like rolling thunder. "You will explain how your species survived the extinction protocol." Maya did not flinch. "With respect, Supreme Chancellor, I think you already know the answer. You just do not want to say it in front of your council." A wave of shocked murmurs swept through the assembly. No one spoke to the Supreme Chancellor this way. No one had dared in 3,000 years. 42,000 years ago, Maya continued, your empire discovered our world. You studied us. You cataloged us. And then you decided something about humanity that terrified you so deeply that you sealed our entire sector and erased our existence from every database in the galaxy. She took one step forward. The guards raised their weapons. The question before this council is not whether we survived. The question is what you found that made you so afraid. Supreme Chancellor Vorith did something that no representative in that chamber had ever witnessed. He hesitated, and in that hesitation, everyone present understood that the woman standing before them was not a prisoner. She was a messenger. The story truly began 6 months earlier, aboard the Imperial Survey Vessel Horizon. Commander Dren of the Veldari species led a routine mapping expedition through Sector 9, a region marked on all official charts as a dead zone. Nothing but radiation and debris, according to the records dot when his sensors detected artificial satellites orbiting the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. Dren assumed his equipment had malfunctioned. "Run the scan again," he ordered. His science officer, a young female named Pell, checked her instruments 3 times before responding. "The readings are accurate, Commander. I am detecting electromagnetic communications, industrial emissions, and approximately 8 billion life signs." Dren stared at the blue and green world growing larger in his view screen. "That is impossible. This sector has been classified as dead for millennia. I am telling you what the sensors show, Commander. That world is not only alive, it is thriving." Dren ordered a closer approach. What he found over the next several hours would change the course of galactic history. The beings on this world called themselves humans. They had developed faster-than-light theory independently. They had created quantum computing networks, genetic modification techniques, and an orbital defense grid that rivaled anything in the Imperial arsenal. They had done all of this without any contact with the wider galaxy. Dren's first instinct was to report his discovery immediately. But something made him hesitate. He accessed the deep archives, files that required his highest security. Clearance to open what he found there turned his blood cold. This world had not been forgotten. It had been deliberately hidden. 42,000 years ago, the Empire's founders had discovered Earth and its primitive human inhabitants. They had conducted extensive studies over several decades. And then, without explanation, the High Council of that era had ordered the entire sector sealed. All records were buried, all references erased. The order came from Emperor Caliph himself with a single annotation: they must never be found. If the galaxy learns what we discovered, our civilization will collapse. Dren was still processing this information when his vessel's alarms began to scream. Earth's defense grid had detected him. A human ship appeared on his sensors. Not a primitive rocket, not a chemical thruster, but a sleek vessel that moved through space with impossible grace. Its technology was not just comparable to the Empire's. In some ways, it was superior. A woman's voice came through his communication array. "Imperial vessel, this is Admiral Maya Torres of Earth Defense Command. We have been expecting you. Please power down your weapons. We mean you no harm, but we have much to discuss." Dren looked at the fleet forming behind her ship. Dozens of vessels. Maybe hundreds. "You have been expecting us?" He managed to say, "For a very long time, Commander. We found the sealed archives centuries ago. We know what your Empire did to us. We know why you hid our existence from the galaxy." Dren's throat went dry. "What do you want?" "We want what was taken from us. Recognition. A seat at the table. The right to exist without fear of extermination." "And if the Empire refuses?" Maya Torres smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We have had 42,000 years to prepare for this conversation, Commander. The Empire will not refuse. But first, you need to understand something important." "What is that?" "Humans were not hidden because we were dangerous. We were hidden because we are different in ways your founders could not explain and could not control. We adapt. We connect. We change everything we touch, not through conquest, but through integration." She leaned closer to the view screen. "Your Empire built itself on fear and separation. We built ourselves on bonds that cannot be broken. That is what terrified your ancestors, Commander. And that is what the galaxy is about to discover." Dren looked at the fleet surrounding his ship, at the world that should not exist, at the woman who spoke as if she had already won a war that had not yet begun. He realized, with growing dread, that she might be right. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you take me to your council. Now the galaxy learns the truth about why humanity was erased from history. And now your Empire faces a choice it has been avoiding for 42,000 years. What choice is that?" Admiral Torres stood straighter, her eyes burning with something that looked like hope mixed with steel. "Whether to finally let us in, or to learn exactly why your ancestors were so afraid to let us out." The transmission ended. Dren sat in silence for a long moment, staring at the blue and green world that was about to reshape. Everything the galaxy believed. Then he gave the order to set course for the Galactic Council. The reckoning had begun. The Galactic Council chamber erupted into chaos the moment the holographic recording began to play. Ancient footage, preserved for 42,000 years in classified archives, showed the first Imperial expedition landing on a world covered in forests and primitive settlements. "This cannot be authentic," shouted Representative Grill of the Manthari Dominion. His insectoid wings buzzed with agitation. "It is verified by 17 independent analysis systems." Supreme Chancellor Voreth responded, though his voice lacked its usual authority. "The records are genuine." Admiral Maya Torres stood at the center of the testimony platform, watching the alien representatives argue among themselves. Beside her, Commander Dren shifted nervously. He had become humanity's unlikely advocate over the past 6 months, though he still was not entirely sure how that had happened. "Show them the rest," Maya said quietly. The recording continued. Imperial scientists moved through primitive human villages, taking samples, conducting tests, observing behavior. The humans of that era used stone tools and lived in simple dwellings. They should have been unremarkable. Just another pre-industrial species scheduled for eventual assimilation into the empire. But the scientists. Notes told a different story. Subject: population demonstrates unprecedented adaptive capacity. The lead researcher narrated in the recording. Immune systems respond to foreign pathogens within days rather than generations. Cognitive development accelerates when exposed to new challenges. Social structures reorganize in response to environmental changes faster than any documented species. The recording showed a controlled experiment. Imperial scientists introduced a mild virus to an isolated human settlement, the kind of pathogen that typically killed 90% of primitive species. Within 2 weeks, the humans had developed immunity. Not just resistance. Complete immunity. The scientists ran more tests. They presented complex puzzles that required abstract reasoning far beyond what Stone Age civilizations should possess. The humans solved them within hours. They presented social challenges that typically fragmented primitive societies. The humans reorganized themselves and overcame the obstacles. Every test yielded the same result. Humans adapted. Not over millennia, not through gradual evolution, but within months or even weeks. The chamber had gone completely silent. Our projections were clear, the ancient researcher continued. At their current rate of development, this species will achieve faster than light travel within 15,000 years. Within 20,000 years, they will rival our own technological capabilities. Within 30,000 years, they will surpass us. Supreme Chancellor Vorith's voice cut through the silence. This is precisely why the extinction protocol was considered. Why did your ancestors not simply eliminate the threat? Maya smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. Show them the second recording. The hologram shifted. A different researcher appeared, this one specializing in behavioral analysis. We cannot destroy them, she said flatly. Our psychological models indicate that humans form bonds unlike any species we have encountered. These bonds transcend individual survival instinct. They will die for each other. They will sacrifice everything for each other. If we attempt extermination, they will fight back with an intensity we cannot match. The recording showed combat simulations. Even with primitive weapons, human defensive responses were devastating. They coordinated instinctively, sacrificed individuals to protect groups, and refused to surrender long past the point where any rational species would have accepted defeat. More importantly, the researcher continued, if any humans survive our attempted extermination, they will never stop hunting us. Their capacity for long-term memory and multi-generational vengeance exceeds anything in our models. They will pursue us across the galaxy. They will teach their children to hate us. They will make our destruction their species-defining purpose. Maya watched the alien representatives processing this information. Fear rippled through the chamber like a living thing. Your ancestors faced an impossible choice, she said. They could not destroy us without risking their own annihilation. They could not subjugate us because we would never stop fighting. They could not befriend us because eventually we would learn what they had considered doing to us. So they chose to hide us instead, Dren finished. They sealed the sector, erased all records, and hoped humanity would never develop space travel. A reasonable strategy, one of the representatives said. A crystalline being whose name Maya did not know. Why did it fail? Maya stepped forward. Because they underestimated exactly what they were afraid of. Our adaptation, our connection, our refusal to accept limitations. She activated her own holographic display. Star charts appeared above the assembly, dozens of them, scattered across the galaxy. Humanity found the sealed archives 300 years ago. We learned everything. The experiments, the projections, the decision to erase us. We could have been angry. We could have begun building weapons of vengeance. Instead, we built ships. We explored. We searched. And we found something your empire never expected us to find. The star charts began highlighting specific sectors, each one marked with the same classification as Earth. Forbiddens, sealed, extinct. These are not dead zones, Maya announced. These are prison cells. And we are not the only inmates. The chamber exploded into chaos. Over the next several hours, Maya presented evidence that the Empire's founders had not merely hidden humanity. They had hidden dozens of species. Any civilization that showed potential to challenge imperial dominance had been sealed away, their existence erased from galactic records. Some of those species were still alive, still evolving, still waiting. You cannot verify this, Supreme Chancellor Voreth insisted. These records could be fabricated. Then send your ships to investigate, Maya responded. Open the sealed sectors. See what your ancestors buried. That would require council authorization. It would take years. You do not have years, Supreme Chancellor. Maya's voice hardened. Because we have already opened one of those sectors. We have already made contact with the species imprisoned there. And they have agreed to stand with humanity when the time comes. The chamber went deathly quiet. Stand with you against whom? Voreth asked. Maya looked directly at him. Against the Empire, if necessary. Against anyone who tries to erase us again. Against the lie that has kept this galaxy divided for 42,000 years. She gestured, and new images appeared above the assembly. Ships, hundreds of them. Human vessels and strange, unknown designs moving together in formation. You built an empire on fear and separation, Maya said. You hid every species that might challenge you, every civilization that might think differently, every culture that might unite against you. You created isolation and called it peace. Humanity offers something different. Connection, alliance, the chance to finally know who else is out there and what we might accomplish together. Supreme Chancellor. Voreth rose slowly from his throne. His 6 eyes studied the human woman who had just threatened to unravel everything his civilization had built. You are asking us to choose, he said, between the Empire as it exists and some new order that you claim to represent. No, Maya replied. I am telling you that the choice has already been made. The sealed sectors are opening, whether you authorize it or not. The hidden species are waking up. The galaxy is about to become much larger and much more complicated than your empire ever imagined. The only question is whether you will join us in building something new, or whether you will be remembered as the civilization that tried to stop the future. She turned and began walking toward the chamber doors. Dren hurried after her, his heart pounding. You cannot simply leave, Voreth called out. This council has not dismissed you. Maya stopped, but did not turn around. This council does not control us, Supreme Chancellor. It never did. We were free the moment your ancestors decided they could not destroy us. She looked back over her shoulder. You have 1 standard month to make your decision. After that, we stop waiting. The doors closed behind her in the silence that followed. Every representative in the chamber understood that the galaxy would never be the same. 20-7 days after Admiral Maya Torres walked out of the Galactic Council chamber, the Empire began to crack. The first faction formed within hours of her departure. 17 species whose homeworlds bordered the sealed sectors demanded immediate investigation. They wanted to know who else had been hidden from them, who else might be their neighbors. The second faction emerged the following day. 43 species with ancient grudges against the Empire saw opportunity in the chaos. They began quietly reaching out to humanity, offering alliances, trade agreements, military support. The third faction was the most dangerous. These were the Loyalists, species who had benefited from imperial dominance for millennia. They gathered around Supreme Chancellor Voroth and demanded immediate military action against Earth before humanity's fleet could grow any larger dot by the 15th day. The Galactic Council had effectively ceased to function. Maya Torres watched the collapse from the observation deck of her flagship, the Unity. Earth floated in the distance, beautiful and blue, surrounded by the defense grid that had protected her people for 3 centuries. Commander Dren stood beside her. He had officially defected to humanity 2 weeks ago, after Imperial intelligence tried to have him assassinated for his role in exposing the sealed archives. "Your plan worked," he said. "The Council is tearing itself apart." "This was not the plan," Maya replied quietly. "We wanted recognition, not war. What did you expect? You exposed 42,000 years of lies. You revealed that the Empire built itself on burying anyone who might challenge it. Did you think they would simply apologize?" Maya did not answer. Through the viewport, she could see the incoming vessel, a diplomatic shuttle bearing the colors of the Manthari Dominion. "Representative Grell wants to negotiate," Dren observed. "The Manthari control 12 major systems. Their support would be significant. Grell wants to use us as a weapon against his enemies. That is not an alliance. That is a transaction. Is there a difference?" Maya turned to face him. "That difference is exactly what the Empire never understood about humanity. We do not form bonds for advantage. We form bonds because connection is what we are. Using us as a tool will not work. Eventually, we change everyone we connect with." Before Dren could respond, alarms began screaming throughout the ship. "Admiral to the bridge, immediately," the communication system announced. Unknown vessels detected at the edge of the system. Maya ran back when she reached the bridge. The tactical display showed something impossible. Hundreds of ships emerging from faster-than-light travel, none of them matching any known Imperial or human design. "Identify," she ordered. "We cannot," her tactical officer replied. "Hull configurations do not match any species in our database. Energy signatures are unlike anything we have ever recorded." "They are from the sealed sectors," Dren said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The Third hidden species. They are coming." The communication array crackled to life. A voice emerged, translated by the universal systems that humanity had integrated into their ships decades ago. "People of Earth, we are the consortium of the forgotten. We received your message 3 other months ago. We have been waiting for this day longer than your species has existed." Maya stepped toward the display. "This is Admiral Maya Torres. We welcome you. We know who you are, Admiral. We have been watching your confrontation with the Empire. We have been debating among ourselves whether to make contact. What convinced you?" There was a pause. "Your species could have demanded vengeance. The Empire tried to erase you from existence. Instead, you searched for others like you. You built ships not for war, but for connection. We decided that we want to understand what kind of species chooses unity over hatred." The display shifted. Images of the approaching vessels became clearer. Each one was different, representing different technologies, different biological bases, different philosophies of construction. Some were crystalline. Some were organic, grown rather than built. Some existed partially outside normal space, visible only as distortions in the starfield. Dozens of species. Hundreds of worlds. Thousands of years of isolated development, all converging on this moment. "We wish to speak with your leaders," the voice continued. "Not to form an alliance against the Empire, but to understand what you intend. Your species is the newest of the forgotten. You will help determine what we become together. Maya felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Humanity had hoped to find others like them. They had not expected to become the catalyst for a galactic transformation. We will meet you, she said. Name the location. The council chamber. In 3 of your days. We believe it is time for the Empire to see exactly what they have been hiding from themselves. The transmission ended. The ships remained at the edge of the system, waiting. Dren let out a breath he had been holding. The Council will never allow this. Voreth will see it as an invasion. That is exactly why we must go. Maya turned to her crew. Contact Earth Defense Command. We are taking a diplomatic delegation to the Galactic Council. And this time, we are not going alone. 3 days later, the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council witnessed something unprecedented. Admiral Naya Torres entered through the main doors, accompanied not by guards, but by representatives of 17 species that the Empire had erased from history dock behind them. Visible through the chamber's massive viewports, hung a combined fleet of over 800 vessels. Human ships flew alongside designs that no Imperial citizen had ever seen. Supreme Chancellor Voreth stood at his throne, frozen. Around him, the 1,200 representatives of Imperial member species stared in disbelief. You were warned, Maya said, her voice carrying through the sudden silence. 1 month to make your decision. Time is up, she gestured to the beings beside her. These are the species your ancestors feared. These are the civilizations you buried to maintain your dominance. They are not here for revenge, Chancellor. They are here to ask a simple question. Voreth found his voice. What question? A crystalline being stepped forward, light pulsing through its structure in complex patterns. Why? The single word hung in the air. Why did you hide us? The being continued. Why did you choose isolation over integration? Why did you decide that difference was a threat rather than an opportunity? Another representative stepped forward, this one a being of flowing silver that seemed to exist in constant motion. We have had millennia to grow bitter. We have had endless time to plot revenge. Some among us wanted exactly that. But then we made contact with humanity. We studied them as your ancestors once did. And we found something that changed our minds. The silver being turned to face Maya. Humans do not conquer. They connect. They do not destroy different perspectives. They integrate them. They adapt without consuming. They change without erasing. They showed us that the future does not have to repeat the patterns of the past. Supreme Chancellor. Voreth looked from the human to the forgotten species to the fleet hovering outside. His 6 eyes held something that might have been fear, or might have been the first stirrings of understanding. What do you want? He asked finally. Maya stepped forward. We want the sealed sectors opened. We want full recognition for every species the Empire tried to erase. We want a new council, one that represents the galaxy as it actually exists, rather than the fiction your ancestors created. And if we refuse? Maya smiled, and for the first time, there was warmth in it. That is the beauty of this moment, Chancellor. You cannot refuse. The sealed sectors are already opening. The hidden species are already emerging. The future is already here. The only choice you have is whether to be part of it. She extended her hand, palm up, in the human gesture of offering. Join us. Help us build something better than what came before. Not because we will destroy you if you refuse, but because deep down, you know that the Empire's way has always been wrong. The chamber held its breath. Supreme Chancellor Voreth looked at the human's outstretched hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, he began to descend from his throne. Supreme Chancellor Voreth stopped 3 steps from Maya Torres, his hand hovering in the space between them. The entire council chamber watched, 1,200 representatives holding their breath. Then Voreth smiled. And in that smile, Maya saw something that made her blood run cold. "You believe you have won," he said softly. "You believe you have exposed our secrets and forced us to change. But there is one secret I have not shared, one truth that your ancestors in those sealed sectors never discovered." He turned to address the chamber. "Representatives of the Council, representatives of the forgotten species, you stand here demanding answers. Let me give you the only answer that matters." The holographic display above the chamber flickered to life. Star charts appeared, but these were different from any Maya had seen before. They showed regions beyond the galaxy's edge, vast expanses of darkness punctuated by strange distortions. "For 300 years, the Empire has been fighting a war," Vorith announced. "A war we have kept secret, because revealing it would cause panic beyond anything we could control." The display shifted to show combat footage. Imperial warships engaged something that defied description. Darkness that moved. Void that consumed. Ships disappeared not through explosion, but through erasure, simply ceasing to exist as the darkness touched them. "We call them the Hollow," Vorith continued. "They come from beyond the galaxy, from the space between galaxies where nothing should exist. They consume everything they touch, stars, planets, life itself." The chamber erupted into chaos, but Vorith raised his hand for silence. "Every fleet we have sent against them has been destroyed. Every weapon we have developed has failed. Every strategy has proven useless. The Hollow cannot be fought. They can only be delayed." He turned back to Maya. "Do you understand now, Admiral? The Empire did not hide your species out of fear of competition. We hid you because we needed to preserve every possible resource for the war that is coming. Our projections show that the Hollow will reach the galactic core in approximately 50 years. When they arrive, every species in this chamber will be consumed. Every world, every civilization, every memory of everything we have ever been." Maya stared at him. "You knew about this. All along you knew, and you said nothing. What would telling you have accomplished? You cannot fight the Hollow. No one can. Then why reveal it now?" Vorith's 6 eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her want to step backward. "Because you have given me something I did not have before. Hope." He gestured to the forgotten species standing behind her. "These civilizations have been evolving in isolation for millennia. They have developed technologies we never imagined. And humanity itself possesses something no other species has ever demonstrated." "Adaptation," Maya said slowly. "You want to use our adaptation against the Hollow. I want to offer you a choice, Admiral. The same choice I have been forced to make every day for 300 years. You can continue your crusade against the Empire, expose all our secrets, tear down everything we have built. And in 50 years, none of it will matter because we will all be dead. Or you can help us fight. All of you. Humans and the Forgotten, and every species in this galaxy working together, not because we trust each other, but because the alternative is extinction." The chamber was silent. Maya looked at Commander Dren, at the crystalline being beside her, at the representatives of species who had every reason to hate the Empire. "You could have told us from the beginning," she said finally. "You could have opened the sealed sectors, admitted what you had done, and asked for help. Would you have believed us? Would you have helped the civilization that tried to erase your existence?" Maya did not answer. She knew she could not. "We need time to discuss this," she said. "All of us. The forgotten species, humanity, even the Empire. If what you are showing us is true, this changes everything." Vorith nodded. "You have 1 week. After that, I must resume defensive preparations, with or without your cooperation." Maya turned to leave, then stopped. "Chancellor, one more question." "Yes?" "The recordings from 42,000 years ago. Your ancestors said humanity could not be destroyed because we would never stop fighting back. They said we form bonds that transcend survival instinct. I remember the recordings. Did they ever consider that those same bonds might make us the galaxy's greatest defenders? That a species willing to die for each other might also be willing to die for everyone else? Vorath was silent for a long moment. No, he admitted. They only saw threat. They never considered the possibility of alliance. That was their mistake, Maya said. And it almost became yours. She walked out of the chamber with the forgotten species following behind her. 1 week later, the largest gathering of species in galactic history convened aboard the human flagship Unity. Representatives from the Empire, the Forgotten Consortium, and dozens of unaligned civilizations filled every available space. Maya stood at the center, surrounded by beings she had never imagined meeting. The crystalline entity called itself Resonance and communicated through light. The silver-flowing being was named Current and existed partially outside normal time. Others defied description entirely. We have reviewed the Imperial data on the Holo, Maya began. The Chancellor was not lying. The threat is real, and our current capabilities are insufficient to stop it. Then why are we here? Current asked. If the enemy cannot be defeated, what purpose does this gathering serve? To find an answer that none of us could find alone. Maya activated a display showing everything humanity had learned about the Holo over the past week. The Empire has been fighting the Holo with weapons, destroying them, containing them, pushing them back. None of it has worked. What do you propose instead? Maya took a deep breath. I propose we do what the Empire never considered. I propose we try to communicate. Silence. Then, slowly, laughter began to ripple through the gathering. Bitter, incredulous laughter. Communicate with the void? One of the Imperial representatives scoffed. They consume everything they touch. They do not think. They do not reason. They simply devour. Do we know that? Maya countered. Or have we simply assumed it because they are so different from us? She pulled up the combat footage Vorath had shown. Look at their movements. There are patterns here. The Holo do not attack randomly. They prioritize certain targets over others. They avoid specific regions for reasons we do not understand. This could simply be instinct, Resonance observed, its light patterns thoughtful. Or it could be choice. We will not know until we try. Commander Dren stepped forward. Even if you are right, how would we communicate with beings made of living darkness? We have no common frame of reference. Maya turned to look at him and at the assembled representatives of a dozen civilizations that should never have met. We have each other, she said simply. Every species in this room evolved differently. We think differently, perceive reality differently, exist in different ways. If we can find common ground between a crystalline being that communicates through light and a carbon-based species that communicates through sound, perhaps we can find a way to reach the Holo as well. And if we cannot? Maya smiled grimly. Then at least we will die having tried something other than destruction. At least we will die as something new. Not as the scattered victims of an ancient empire, but as the first true alliance this galaxy has ever known. The gathering fell silent. One by one, the representatives looked at each other, at the human who had somehow brought them together, at the future that hung in the balance. Resonance was the first to speak. Humanity is young. Your species has existed for barely a heartbeat in galactic terms. And yet, you speak of reaching out to the impossible, of connection where none should exist. Perhaps that is exactly what we need. A species too young to know what cannot be done. Current flowed forward. We will help you. Not because we believe you will succeed, but because we believe the attempt itself has value. One by one, the other species added their voices. Even the Imperial representatives, grudgingly, agreed to participate. Maya looked at the gathering, at the impossible alliance forming before her eyes. Somewhere beyond the galaxy's edge, the hollow waited. Darkness that consumed. Void that devoured Dot, but for the first time in 300 years. They would face something they had never encountered, a galaxy that refused to be consumed, a coalition of species that had chosen connection over isolation, and a single human woman who believed that even the void might be reached. If only someone dared to try. The question was no longer whether they could defeat the hollow. The question was whether they could understand them. The allied fleet gathered at the edge of the galaxy, where stars grew sparse, and the darkness between worlds deepened into something absolute. 3,000 vessels from 100 species faced the void, united for the first time in galactic history. Admiral Maya Torres stood on the bridge of the Unity, watching the hollow approach through the tactical display. They moved like smoke made solid, like shadows given form. Wherever they passed, stars dimmed and died. "All ships report ready," Commander Dren announced. "The network is active." Maya nodded. Over the past 3 months, humanity had worked with the forgotten species to build something unprecedented, a communication network that linked the minds of volunteers from every participating civilization. The theory was simple. If a single species could not reach the hollow, perhaps a combined consciousness could. The practice was terrifying. 3,000 individuals had volunteered to join the network. They sat in specially designed chambers aboard ships throughout the fleet, their minds connected through technology that blended human neural interfaces with crystalline resonance patterns and temporal manipulation. When the link activated, they would become something new. Not quite one mind, but not entirely separate either. Maya was one of the 3,000. "Are you sure about this, Admiral?" Dren asked. His concern was genuine. Over the past months, he had become something she had not expected, a friend. "Someone has to go first," she replied. "It should be me." She walked to the connection chamber at the heart of the ship. The door sealed behind her. She lay down on the interface bed and felt the neural contacts press against her temples. "Initiating connection," the ship's computer announced. Maya's awareness expanded. She felt resonance first, the crystalline being whose thoughts came as cascading patterns of light. Then current, whose perception of time was so different that communicating with them felt like swimming through memory itself. Then thousands of others, each mind a unique thread in a vast tapestry that was slowly weaving itself together. Some threads were warm and familiar. Humans from Earth, from the colony ships, from the frontier stations. Their consciousness felt like home. Some threads were strange beyond description. Beings who perceived gravity as color, who experienced mathematics as music, who existed in dimensions Maya had no words for. All of them reached toward each other. All of them merged into something greater than any individual could have imagined. And together, they reached toward the hollow. The first contact was like touching ice. Empty, cold, an absence of everything Maya had ever known. But beneath the emptiness, something stirred. "You are different." The voice came from nowhere and everywhere at once. It was not sound. It was not thought. It was something older, something that predated language itself. "We feel each other," the hollow continued. "You connect across distance. We have consumed 10,000 species and never found this. We do not understand." Maya pushed forward through the linked consciousness, carrying the combined will of 3,000 minds. "We are trying to understand you as well. Who are you? Why do you consume?" The answer came not in words, but in sensation. Maya experienced the hollow's existence directly, and it nearly shattered her. Loneliness. Endless cosmic loneliness. The hollow were ancient beyond comprehension. They had existed before stars, before matter, before the universe, as Maya knew it had formed. When reality began to coalesce into galaxies and planets and life, the Hollow found themselves increasingly isolated, unable to touch, unable to connect, unable to feel anything but the growing void where others should have been. They consumed because consumption was the only way they knew to interact. They ate light because light was the only thing that made them feel less empty. However briefly, for billions of years, they had been searching. Species after species had emerged across the cosmos. None of them could perceive the Hollow as anything but threat. None of them could reach across the fundamental divide between what the Hollow were and what the universe had become. Until now. "You feel us," the Hollow said, and Maya sensed something that might have been wonder. "You touch us. How?" Through the network, 3,000 minds worked together to form an answer. Each species contributed something different. The crystalline beings offered their understanding of resonance. The tempera. L beings offered their perception of continuity. The humans offered their stubborn, irrational conviction that connection was always possible. Together, they built a bridge, not physical, not technological, something deeper. A shared space where beings of matter and beings of void could finally meet. Maya felt herself stretching across that bridge. Part of her remained human, remained connected to Earth and everything she loved. But part of her extended into the darkness, learning to feel what the Hollow felt, learning to exist in the spaces between existence. It hurt. The loneliness was vast enough to swallow galaxies. The emptiness was old enough to make stars seem like mayflies. But Maya held on. And through her, 3,000 others held on as well. "We can feel you now," Maya said through the network. "We can touch you. You do not have to be alone anymore." The Hollow paused their advance. Throughout the galaxy, sensors registered something unprecedented. The darkness was no longer expanding. "You would do this?" The Hollow asked. "You would carry our loneliness within you? It will change you. It will never leave you." Maya thought of Earth, of her family, of her friends, of the billions of humans who had no idea what was happening at the edge of their galaxy. She thought of the forgotten species who had spent millennia in isolation. She thought of the empire that had tried so hard to prevent exactly this kind of connection. All of them had been alone in their own ways. All of them had suffered from it. "We are already carrying loneliness," she replied. "Every species in this galaxy knows what it means to feel isolated, forgotten, afraid. That is what we have in common. That is why we can reach you when no one else could. We do not offer to take your loneliness away. We offer to share it. We offer to carry it together, so that none of us have to carry it alone." The Hollow were silent for a long moment. Through the network, Maya could feel the combined consciousness of 3,000 beings waiting, hoping, praying in whatever ways their species understood prayer. Then the Hollow did something they had never done in all the billions of years of their existence. They accepted. The change was not instant. It took months of careful work, of sustained connection, of slowly building trust between beings who had never trusted anyone. Many of the volunteers in the network were changed forever, carrying fragments of the Hollow's ancient consciousness within them. But it worked. 1 year later, Maya Torres returned to the Galactic Council chamber. She walked slowly, and her eyes held depths that had not been there before. Something ancient looked out through them, something that remembered the time before stars. But she was still human, still connected to her people, her world, her species. The Hollow had not consumed her. She had become a bridge. "The war is over," she announced to the assembled representatives. "The Hollow are no longer advancing. They have agreed to coexist with the galaxy, to find ways of meeting their needs without destruction." Supreme Chancellor Vorth rose from his throne. "How is this possible?" Maya smiled, and the expression contained both human warmth and something far stranger. Because we did what the Empire never considered. We reached out. We connected. We refused to see difference as a threat. She looked around the chamber, at the beings of 1,000 species who had once been divided by fear, and now were united by something unprecedented. 42,000 years ago, your ancestors discovered humanity and were afraid of what we might become. They thought our ability to adapt, to connect, to change everything we touched was a danger to be contained. They were right that we would change everything, but they were wrong about what that change would look like. She extended her hand, and something moved within it. A fragment of darkness, a piece of the hollow, given freely as a symbol of the new bond between matter and void. This is what humanity was always meant to become. Not a threat, not a weapon. A bridge between worlds that never should have met. A connection between beings who never thought they could understand each other. The galaxy believed we were forgotten. The truth is that we were exactly where we needed to be, growing into exactly what we needed to become. Maya placed the fragment of darkness on the testimony platform. It hovered there, neither quite present nor quite absent, a living reminder of what had been accomplished. The question now is not whether we belong in your galaxy, she concluded. The question is what we will build together, now that we finally understand what connection really means. In the observation gallery above, Commander Dren watched the council erupt into applause. Beside him stood Resonance and Current, representatives of species that had been forgotten for millennia. She did it, Dren said softly. She actually did it. Resonance pulsed with light that approximated human laughter. Did you doubt her? Every day. But she never doubted herself. Current flowed in patterns that somehow suggested a smile. That is why she succeeded. Humans believe impossible things. And sometimes, belief is enough to make them true. Below them, Maya Torres stood at the center of the galaxy's attention, a woman who had become something more than human without becoming less. Behind her eyes, the hollow waited and watched, no longer lonely, no longer consuming, finally part of something greater than themselves. The galaxy would never be the same. But for the first time in its long history, it would face the future united, not through conquest, not through fear, through connection, through the bridge that humanity had become.